One of the reasons this platform exists is because of the unseen, unheard, and unaddressed conversations around the lived experiences of individual people leading organizations and cities, movements, people who are influencing real change in real time. This season, I'm bringing to you another special series, Pass the Mic Black Men Power Moves. It won't run back to back. There won't be a strict episode release pattern, but it'll live inside the fabric of our conversations because that's how these stories show up in the world when they are ready to be heard. Pass the Mic, Black Men Power Moves is where I'm holding space for these real, layered, often unspoken stories of Black men as full human beings navigating the weight and responsibility of visibility, of leadership, of legacy, of friendships and relationships, and of being seen. And sometimes these stories rarely get told, perhaps because the world doesn't pause long enough to listen to them, or maybe even that the world often lacks the language or the willingness to receive them. And so today, I'm honored to begin this series with Michael W. Allison. Welcome to Impact Innovators with Felicia Ford, where we dive into the strategies that empower changemaker brands to leave a lasting legacy. Think of this podcast as your audio playbook for meaningful action. What's possible when thought leaders, disruptors, and pioneers align to share their journeys? I'm Felicia Ford, your host, bringing together the brightest minds and the most groundbreaking ideas to help you drive change, navigate through the sticky stuff, and elevate your brand. Whether you're tackling funding hurdles, looking for growth strategies, or seeking the perfect balance between profit and purpose, we've got you covered. Stay tuned and be a part of a movement that's setting new benchmarks in how we think about progress, community, and doing. Let's innovate, impact, and inspire. And before we begin, I want to acknowledge that this episode includes sensitive themes around war, trauma, and suicidal ideation. If these are topics you're navigating, please take care as you listen. Resources are included in the show notes if you or someone you know needs support. You've been taught to lead through pressure, but no one taught you what to do when the pressure turns personal. The pressure to perform, to push through, to never flinch. And while the world loves the polished version of success, it rarely teaches how to survive the internal war. What if leadership is a rhythm forged in adversity? What if it isn't about climbing a ladder, but about building through what tried to break you? Michael W. Allison didn't learn leadership from a whiteboard. He didn't read about crisis leadership in a textbook. He earned that wisdom under fire as a U.S. Marine Purple Heart recipient and combat leader on the battlefield. From Iraq to Inc. 5000, from TEDx stages to national platforms, today, as CEO of the Adversity Academy, Michael teaches global audiences from Microsoft to NBC to TEDx how to break the internal bottle that keeps so many leaders bound. In this episode of Pass the Mic, Black Men Power Moves, Michael shares the origin of his unleadership and break the bottle 3D methodology, the quiet decisions behind the podium, and how he balances national leadership with his most sacred roles, husband to Courtney and father to Omar and Corey. If you've ever felt like your leadership was forged in fire, but your story still goes unheard, let Michael show you how to break the bottle and lead like your future depends on it. Michael, thank you for joining us.
Wow, wow, wow. Felicia, thank you so much for having me here. It's an absolute pleasure.
I'm so excited. I could see you from the side in my peripheral. So I hope I nailed all the things. Did I nail all the things?
That was spot on. You had me up here smiling from cheek to cheek, man.
Go.
You nailed it.
Go, go, go. Well, thank you for your sacrifice and your service and for being here. I know that your story did not begin on a stage. So please share with us who you are, what you're doing, how it all started.
Absolutely. Well, it's an honor to be here with you and share my story with your audience. And My story started many years ago, and I always tell people my story is one of resilience and transformation. And how did that start? Born in Jamaica from humble beginnings. I was just a chubby kid that loved to play around, loved to have a good time. I was that kid that was eating out of my mom's like cake bowls and stuff like that. Just always mischievous, always trying to like just have a good time. For me, though, I wish I could say I had the upbringing and childhood that was the one where kids could tell you all of the great things that happened. But for me, unfortunately, it didn't. I can remember back at 5 years old where we had a flood and the house that we had, it was raining and raining and raining. And behind our house, we had a canal. Back then, they called that a gully, which is connected to the river.
Mhm.
And it started raining and overflowing one night. And then all of a sudden, we're waking up in the middle of the night and we seeing things just floating around. And mom and dad has to get the ladder and we sitting on top of the roof of our house and
Mm.
waiting for the rain to subside because we're about to drown. Everybody
Oh
think
my
we're to
gosh.
die. And this is my first face of adversity. But in this moment, this is where I saw how my mom and dad was resilient as they decided to like, this is not going to break us. This is something that's going to help structure us and forge us to who we're going to be. And you could think at that particular time for parents, my dad was at the time a taxi driver and my mom was a postal clerk. And we don't have like things saved. So we don't have like safes. We don't have like Google Drives to save documents or any of those
Yeah.
things. They lost everything.
Mm.
And unfortunately, they had to rebuild. And Jamaica is in the Caribbean. And when you think of it compared to some of the other Caribbean countries, one of the poorest countries. And we're hit with natural disasters on an annual basis, regardless. You don't have a choice of running away from this. So 2 years later, we get hit with Hurricane Gilbert, Category 5 hurricane, killed over 300 people, and
Mm.
blew our house away again. And this
Again.
and this is when mom and dad said, you know what, it's time for a change. And with change came with some sacrifices. So they decided to move to New York and they left us in Jamaica. And they went to New York to work some odd end jobs just to, create a life and a living for us. In addition to that, shortly after that, they sent us to Miami, Florida. And we moved to Miami, Florida to go live with some family members, extended family members to Overtown, Miami, Florida. And when you think about Overtown, Miami, Florida, this is like the projects of the projects and the ghetto of the ghettos in
Oh,
1988. And we get there, get picked up. My uncle had one of those like old school like station wagons with the wood grain on the side of
I
it.
remember that. Yes.
So he picked us up and he takes us to the house and I get introduced to the projects of Overtown and I'm seeing nothing but prostitution, drugs, gangs, graffitis, things that a 7-year-old kid has never seen in his life before. And sadly, unfortunately, my first night that I'm there, it's seven of us in a room and we're sleeping on the floor. Some of us are on the bunk beds. And my 13-year-old female cousin tried to take my innocence away from me.
Mm.
And that rocked me, man. And it's hard when you're a kid and you're a guest in somebody's house. You're not there with your mom and dad, and you're trying to like navigate this, figure this out, and you don't know where to turn, where to go to. And that really rocked me for a very long time. And that kind of led to my path of just isolating, bottling things in, which is hence
Mhm.
why I talk about breaking the bottle.
Mhm.
And it's something that helped shaped me in regards to who I am now today. But unfortunately, it was just like kept being much more adversities that I kept getting hit with at
Mhm.
different stages in my life. I wish I could tell you that it got better from there, but actually it never did. There was more adversities that just kept compiling and compiling right after that. As I'm pretty sure you'll probably ask more questions about that, but I'll let you know more about it here in a short while.
Well, I mean, I am talking about past the mic, okay? Floored, number one.
Mhm.
The moment you shared about your experience with your cousin, my heart dropped. I mean,
Mhm.
I just heard you share that before the age of 7, you lived through two hurricanes and
Yep,
then your parents moved and then you guys stayed and then you moved to Florida. Before your brain is even developed, you're
exactly.
already dealing with life situations that some adults can't even survive. And so,
And that's what I mean by that. I'm someone that has faced so many things that most people have not dealt with probably in a lifetime, at such a young age. And just to continue with the story a little bit, as I'm there trying to like navigate and figure things out, we're there in America and we get ready to go into our first new schools. And eventually, mom and dad did come to Miami. We moved around. So we moved around from like Little Haiti to Carol City to Opelika, all of these
Mm,
different places. And I didn't speak American English very well. If you think I speak English very well now. So, me de talking a Jamaican language. I'm speaking a patois. So they didn't understand what I talk about, but me there in a school. So
yeah.
anyway, there in
Mm,
school and I talk. I used to get picked on a lot, get bullied a lot, and that led to lots of fights and lots of challenges for myself because I'm trying to acclimate myself, but
mhm,
really, kids are mean back there. You know what I mean?
mhm,
Kids are mean.
mhm,
And
mhm.
we were less fortunate. So when I say less fortunate, our shoes didn't say Nike on it. My shoes said nice on it. So we got shoes from Payless and we
Yeah.
wore riff-raff, hand-me-down types of clothes. So you name it, anything that was not tied to Nike, Troops back in those days, or Reebok,
Yeah.
those type of clothes that people were wearing, then you got picked on. For me as a kid trying to like find my identity and find a place of belonging, was in school and the Boy Scouts came and introduced what the Boy Scouts is about. I asked my mom and dad, can I join the Boy Scouts? They said yes. And I find myself on a trip in Washington, D.C. And I'm there on a trip and we're getting ready to wrap up the last day, seeing all the monuments. And we go to our hotel room. It's 12 boys, half of us split up in one room, half of us go to the other room. And Felicia were there and we're taking our showers, rotating. And I get out of the shower, one of the last kids to take a shower. And there's five boys on the wall. And I get out the shower and I was told to get on that wall too as well. And I experienced something that no kid should ever experience in their life. And it was one of the most humiliating, degrading things that ever took place in my life. And I came back home, shared what took place with my mom, and I immediately was left the Boy Scouts. And with what I found is that, when you're from the country where I'm from and you don't have the means or the financial means or you don't have the education and things like that to actually
Mhm,
like fight the fight and
mhm.
do some things that you really want to do to protect yourself, protect your kid. Unfortunately, you take losses.
Yeah.
And unfortunately that's what happened with us, So I left the Boy Scouts and we just going through life and just living our life and doing our thing. And as my life went on, I mean, things got a little bit better for me. And I went on to high school. I went to an art school because I was very talented when it comes to art. So I could draw, I could paint, and that was my talent as a kid. So I
Mhm,
went to art school, and then after that, I went to play football. And I played football at Hialeah Miami Lakes in Miami, Florida. Turned out to be a pretty good player. My quarterback at the time was Rohan Davey, which I went to go play at LSU, and turned out to be Tom Brady's backup.
mm.
With that being said, that came with some notoriety for our school. Got an opportunity to get an offer from University of Wisconsin. Unfortunately for me, another set of adversity hit. I tear my ACL and MCL my senior year. They take their scholarship back, and now I gotta like figure things out. And this is when I'm hit with adversity again. And I'll be honest with you, I was filled with disappointment, doubt, and just trying to like navigate that. But shortly after that, I got introduced to a recruiter named Staff Sergeant Noda, and Staff Sergeant Noda came talk to me about the Marine Corps. Told me all the good stuff about the Marine Corps, none of the bad
Of
stuff.
course. Of course.
So
Ah,
he tells me all about it. I tell my mom and dad about it. Mom and dad was like, "Hell no, she don't. I don't want you to join the military." Your parents think the worst case, especially because I don't have a family member or anyone that actually serves. So this
mhm,
is their son about to join the military.
mhm.
We're a couple years removed of seeing what Desert Storm looked like. So they're like, no, we don't want you to join. I tell him, he convinced them, changed their mind. Next thing I know, I'm headed to Paris Island. I ship off to boot camp. When I got to boot camp, I thought it was one of the worst decisions I've ever made in my life,
I'm sure. I'm sure. Welcome to South Carolina.
But after that, I went through boot camp and it was challenging, but it really like started like molding me and shaping me and like pushing me, let me know that I could do hard things and accomplish hard things as they really truly like break you down to
Mhm,
make you feel like you're less than. But throughout that same process, they actually build you up. And I went there as a kid that didn't feel like he would belong and graduated as one of the top squad leaders and became a very, very successful Marine after that. I had a chance to serve our country where after 9/11 hit, I came back from Japan And I got to California, got told where it's going to Fallujah, Iraq, and go to Iraq. And that Iraq war shaped me into seeing what I'm truly made of and truly built of what I'm capable of
Mm,
in the face of adversity, in the face of challenges, in the face of anything. When your life is on the line and imminent danger is right around the corner, and you have to be able to respond, you don't have a chance to think, second guess, process so many things. You got to instinctively make decisions in a
mhm.
very fast motion. And if you're not able to process things and think through things, you could actually lose your life, or actually your friends that's next to you could be casualties of war too as well.
Michael, I know you've listened to other episodes, and I'm usually quite the chatty Cathy. You are not the man that lived through those experiences that I can see, and your smile is just bright. And I mean, I want to hear more. You've obviously lived through adversity, and you've used it and turned it into this framework, but I feel like there's more to the adult story and what has happened to Michael. So I'm all dialed in. So please keep going.
Absolutely. I'll tell you some more then. So, so let me tell you this. I take you back to some of the things that took place when I joined the Marines. The first month I was there, I wanted to quit. And when you go to boot camp and someone is like telling you, get on my yellow footprints and do this, get up in the morning, your life is a complete shift. So
Mm-hmm.
I wrote my mom a letter telling her, like, I don't know what the hell I just signed up for, but this ain't it.
This
And
ain't
she
it.
wrote, she wrote me a letter back, and this really helped me put things into perspective. And she was saying, like, your grandfather came from Cuba on a boat and they made it to our country. And they've helped built and created the life that you actually had a chance to live in Jamaica.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that as in, as much as the things that we've been through in Jamaica, he came over there and became a contractor and built several houses for us, gave us plenty of land that we could live on and actually go back to now and retire and all these things. So he did some great things for us. From there, she wrote in that letter, me and your dad came to America, worked these odd end jobs. Your dad used to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, go and pick limes. Then after
Mm-hmm.
that, left that job to go and be a security guard, left that job to go be an electrician at nighttime. So he was working three jobs. My
Mm-hmm.
mom was also a nanny for other people's kids on South Beach while her kids are at home doing other things and stuff like that. So when she kind of like put things in perspective in regards to like sacrifices and things that we've done for you to get here and trying to live the American dream and all of those things, she was like, yo, you could accomplish anything. And what you're going through right now is just something small. And in regards to like all of these other things that you have way ahead of you and preparing you. And I never knew that, going through some of the tough times in my life
Mm-hmm.
was actually preparing me and setting me up to actually probably prepare me to actually go through war and just go through some things after I transition in regards to like a mental toughness mindset of dealing with
Mm-hmm.
tough things when you're faced with hard times.
Mm-hmm.
All that being said, I go through boot camp and I went to boot camp slow. I couldn't swim. I couldn't shoot. None of those things. And I graduated at the top of the class after I read that letter and just changed my mindset and changed my perspective. I go to my first duty station and I share the story with people and I always get a crack out of it. So obviously I'm from Jamaica and I'm from Miami and I get sent to North Carolina. When I get to North Carolina around 1999, when everybody thought the world was about to end on Y2K, as I did, thought it was going to end too.
Mm-hmm.
And I get there, and I've never seen snow a day in my life. So I
Wow.
get there, and it's snowing, and I have to do Marine combat training. And I think it was -5 degrees. And we got to do Marine combat training in the field. And we have to sleep outside, do land navigation outside.
Mm.
And I get through all those things, but then it starts raining in the snow. And all of a sudden, we're hiking back 10 miles. I get hypothermia. I pass out, find myself in the emergency room, thought I was dead.
Oh my
So
gosh.
I got taken out of training for close to 2.5 months just to recover. And I'm always saying to myself, man, how on earth do I just find myself in some of these circumstances and situations where it's not like I'm like going into something. It's like these things are just happening
Just
to me,
happening.
just
Oh.
happening to me. But with all that being said, after that, I found myself at my first duty station and we're there training. And after we're training, I'm driving in my truck getting ready to go to work. And as I'm getting ready to go to work, my mom calls me. She said, Michael, Wagwan. I said, yo. I said, I'm all right. And she's telling me, the Twin Towers just got attacked. She was like, are you going to war? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And as your listeners are listening, like you got to think about what were you doing or where were you at during 9/11? And I was driving, going down to work, and I get down to the base, and everybody's watching it on TV. They shut the base down, and then shortly after that, President Bush declared war on terrorism, and like our whole world just shifted. Like this
Yes.
is nothing that we've ever seen in our lives. And this when if if you were someone that either operated in a lackadaisical type of way, it kind of like changes your perspective and shifted things as like, yo, this thing is serious. Like
Mhm.
you can't
Mhm.
take things for a joke anymore. And this is what changed a lot of stuff. Like this is what created TSA. You know what I mean? Like TSA
Mhm.
didn't exist before this.
Right, right. I remember my roommate at the time, I was a freshman in college, and my roommate's mother worked at the Pentagon, and she came in my dorm room, and my boyfriend had just came in from PT, and she came in and she was crying and she was a wreck, and it was so I mean, unsettling is so not the word, but
Mhm.
we turned on the TV because we couldn't understand what she was saying. I think everyone who was at least 18 or older at that time remembers exactly where they were during that
Right.
moment. We watched the tower, the second tower,
It
and
was gut wrenching, man.
it
To
was.
see something unfold in your eyes,
Hmm.
like you're back, you're not even there in New York, and you feel like you're there in New York.
Hmm.
This is how it felt, how close we were in proximity to this, and it was just terrifying. And that's what led to me actually getting to go to Iraq. So I go to Japan for a year, and I'm serving over there. And then shortly after that, I find myself in Camp Pendleton, California, and we're there training. Captain Venning comes out and tells us, "Boys, it's our turn to invade Fallujah." And we start training, preparing, training, preparing, training, preparing. And this was one of the hardest times for me because I've never was so connected and disconnected at the same time. So I
Mm.
had to let go of things that were very close to me emotionally. So like if I was dating
Hmm.
somebody, I was dating a girl at the time and I broke up with her because the fear of not knowing that I'll come back.
Hmm.
I started like telling my mom and dad how much I love them. I started doing things around like your will, your trust, all those things that you're preparing just in case you don't make it back.
Hmm.
And we leave from California, go to Seattle. From Seattle to Canada, from Canada to Germany, from Germany to Kuwait. And we're there in Kuwait, and it's almost every single day. It's between 105 to 120 degrees. And we're in tanks, we're in our full geared uniforms, and we're there for close to from February all the way till close to November, Thanksgiving is how long we were there. And we take a 300-mile convoy of tanks, Hummers, Humvees, and we get to Fallujah. And we get to Fallujah in the middle of the night, and Captain Venning has given us a debrief, and he's given us a debrief, and next thing we hear, incoming! And we start running and scattering, trying to find cover. And all of a sudden, you hear boom, boom, boom. And then I said to myself, like, this S is real.
Yeah.
This is real. And we've trained with guns. We've trained with but like when like this thing is right here next to you and you could see blast and smoke and you could hear it for the first time, it
Mm.
was eye-opening. It was ear-shocking, all those things. And from then on, our unit became so close. Like this is where like the true brotherhood like actually like kicked in, like knowing that I gotta protect you, you gotta protect me, having each other's back,
Hmm.
and building that sense of camaraderie, where we call it, I guess, esprit de corps for the Marines. The first mission that we go on, I'm there with my gunnery sergeant, and this is something that I talk about in like leadership, as in like you got to get a chance to like work with your team, build up your team, and know your team. And
Hmm.
also during times, there's going to be quiet times, and nothing is going to happen. But all of a sudden, when something does happen, how do you respond instantly? Do you have it inside of you to respond instantly? And we're there for like 12 hours. and nothing is happening while we're providing patrol. And it gets to late in the night, and two RPGs shoots over my head. They land behind my tank. You could feel the heat of the missiles just landing behind you. And immediately, without thinking about it, myself, my gunnery sergeant, Lance Corporal Lowe, Lance Corporal Castanelli turned our vehicles and just start firing our 50 cal, our Mark 19, and leveled this entire building with everybody that was inside of it,
Mm.
responding that quickly. Immediately, once we got back, my gunnery sergeant pulls me to the side and was like, "Hey, brother, thank you so much, man, for having my back. I appreciate how you just responded, and just we just was in sync, as in like we've been training like this for our whole entire life
Yeah.
as a unit." And I told him the same thing, man. I say, "Thank you so much for you having my back and making sure that we all got back and none of us died today." And as I look back at some of these times and these moments, man, I think of how important it was in regards to the training and the preparation that we did leading up to that to respond. And nobody responded in fear, scared, asking questions.
Right.
None of these things that you could translate now to any type of business and stuff like that in regards to
Hmm.
like your team and preparation, in regards to like when adversity or challenges hit you. And this is
Right.
what I've always said. Adversity has hit me in my past, and how you respond truly, truly makes a difference.
Hmm.
And I realized how we responded in this moment truly was making a difference for me. Shortly after that, my gunnery sergeant gets injured. And at this time, I was only 22 years old. So all this stuff I'm telling you, I'm only 22 years old. So during
No one can see me, but I'm sitting here shaking my head because you sound like a 45-year-old man at this point, okay? My
I'm
goodness.
only 22 years old,
Ah.
and my gunnery sergeant comes to me and says, "Hey, I injured my back, and I need to go back to the United States, and they're gonna need somebody to take over first section." And I'll be honest with you, I never thought they was gonna ask me to lead first section. I'm 22 years old, and
Hmm.
inside of our unit of 64 people, there's other senior leaders that either has been to combat. There's other sergeants, there's other staff sergeants, there's other gunnery sergeants, there's captains, there's lieutenants, people that have more experience than me.
Mm.
And they asked Sergeant Allison to lead first section. So if Sergeant Allison leading first section, you're the one that's talking to the colonels, the generals, you're the one that's talking to the drones. You're seeing everything firsthand of what you're going through and going to deal with. And for them to instill so much confidence in me to actually lead and do this, I never understood it then, but I've always looked back at my life and saying that's why I was faced with so many things and dealt with so many things.
Mm.
Another thing I thought was great about me too as well that I think is unique to me is I get a chance to connect with people on a human level. Like I'm
Hmm.
very transparent. I'm very able to share my life story with people. So I get a chance to know people that is working with me. So I know your goods, your bads, your pros, your cons, whatever, all those things about me. So when I was on a track, I know what made Low motivated to demotivated. I know what made Castanelli move. I know what made
Hmm.
all these guys that were working for me. So it was easier for me to connect with them and orientate them and get them to do things opposed to anybody else new to come and work with us would never really get these guys, understood these guys, which is why I understood why they wanted me to lead first section. Let me fast forward to this. While we're there over the 9, 10 months that we're there, we're on plenty of patrols, plenty of missions, doing a whole bunch of things. And the last mission that we're on, we capture some Iraqis that try to shoot at us, try to kill us, and we turn them back in. The next day we come back out, we're linking back up with our unit, and they're set up in a 360 perimeter. And we're going counterclockwise, dropping off ammunitions, MREs, and some water. And we get to the last vehicle, and the last vehicle has my gunnery sergeant, Gunny Keller. We have our doctor. We have Hernandez, that's manning the gun. And we have my best friend, Solto, kid from Wisconsin, Caribbean kid. And we give them their stuff, and we pull off. And as we pull off, I hear the loudest bomb explosion go off, has my ears ringing. The car bomb comes up and it drives into their Humvee. And the blast from it tilts my tank, slams it back down. Shrapnel gashed me above the eye, injured my shoulder, and knocks me out. Castanelli comes up, starts, Sergeant Allison, and is trying to wake me up. Anyhow, he wakes me back up. We get the all clear from Captain Venning, and I get out, and we step out. And I see nothing but the dust, the cloud. You can smell fire. You can smell the smoke. You can smell
Mm.
blood in the air.
Mm.
And as we're there, I see my gunnery sergeant that I was just talking to smoking a cigarette, like blown away from the vehicle. and he just has blood running out of his ears. Then we see the doctor, he's blown away and his legs is blown off. Hernandez, he was manning the weapons, and the muzzle from the 50 cal cuts half of his face off. And then my best friend Soto, that's there in the driver's seat, his whole insides of his stomach is blown on the steering wheel of the vehicle. And I have to put this guy in a body bag. And the military teaches us, how to compartmentalize. And that's something I've been doing my whole life. I've been learning how to
Sure.
compartmentalize and put things away and bottle those things in and never deal with them.
Mm.
And that's immediately what I did. So once I transitioned out of the military, I wish I could tell you it was the greatest experience for me, but I suppressed all of those things that I shared with you from my childhood to what experience in the military. I started working on the railroad shortly after that. But at some point, you got to break that bottle. And it caught up to me. I was there working in Stockbridge, Georgia, and I get a call from the dispatcher. And the dispatcher calls me and says, "Hey, Mr. Allison, we have a suicide here, and we need for you to come and take care of this." I show up.
Why you?
So, as a train master, where I'm responsible for close over 200 miles from Valdosta, Georgia, all the way to Atlanta, Georgia. And it's just a team, and we work in shifts. So it's me and Chad Hitt. And let's say he works in the morning, I work at night. That's it.
Wait,
So,
wait. I'm still stuck here. You have to, as a train master, deal with suicides?
yes,
What?
I get called up and I show up. I get my crew off the train and I get another crew to replace them. Then the news is there, the coroner is there, and they have to clean all this up. I'm getting interviewed and asked about this because obviously they think it's the train that hit the person, but obviously the person jumped in front of the train. So we're there explaining this, talking about it. And unfortunately, the next morning I get up and I have to make a report about what took place. But that brought me back to flashbacks. That brought me back to nightmares. That brought me back to my moment when I put my best friend in a body bag. And from there, that's when I said, I need to get some help. And I took myself to the emergency room, went to go see a doctor. And I wish I could tell you that the doctor that I saw was the best doctor for my situation, but they didn't really create a connection for me. It felt like someone just like checking the box. And it confirmed my initial thought. When I got out, there was always a stigma around mental health with employment. And I was always having the fear of talking about my mental health issues or going to war or shooting people, killing people,
Mhm,
those types of things. So I never talked about those things when I got out of the military.
mhm,
And that moment brought that back. And then when I went to go meet with this person, it led to all of the skepticism that I had before, as in getting the help that she needed around mental health. So I kind of checked out from there. And eventually, I went back to work, got put on FMLA. Shortly after being on FMLA, I get a letter in the mail. Thank you for your service. And they gave me a severance package and they let me go.
You're
So
kidding.
I'm dead serious. From there, so I was unemployed for close to 2 years. About 2 years, I was unemployed. But I took that time off, and at that time, I went back to school and I got my bachelor's degree in information security. Then I got my master's degree in business. And then I went to Washington, D.C., and my life changed. I worked on Capitol Hill, became a project manager, worked with Colin Powell, worked with some of the greatest leaders of all time. So it turned out to be a good opportunity for me to be a IT project manager in Washington, D.C. I got
No.
more stories.
I know you do. I know you do. And I'm like, okay, so many things here, right? I mean, people use adversity as it's a buzzword, right?
Right.
It's definitely a buzzword. And this is not the time for me to share my story. So I won't share my stories, but I have lots of friends who are veterans, family who are veterans, and I know how difficult it is to share that experience, right? Like
Mhm.
some people I know have never once shared openly what they saw when they were where they were.
Mhm.
And I completely respect it and honor it. Most of my listeners are accustomed to the soft and packageable parts of what it means to be a change maker.
Mhm.
And for some people, it's very difficult for them to even digest what you just shared. But I will say, as someone who has worked in crisis work and who has lived through their own crises and adversities, walking the earth as a real person, as a husband, as a father, as a business owner, as someone who now dedicates their life work to helping other people break their bottles is something that some people can never, ever understand, ever.
It's so true. And I think that's the gift that I think helped me when I was in Iraq with my unit and the team, but also it's the gift now that helps me connect with my readers, my listeners, the people that I speak to, the people that I coach, because I'm much more authentic, I'm much more vulnerable, I'm much more transparent. And I'll be honest with you, so the last keynote that I went to go talk to, the people, the lady says, I wanted you to come and speak to our audience because it was at the Pet Food Forum conference. And she says, behind all of the products and the services and all those things, there's real human beings that's dealing with real life problems. Some of them are dealing
Mhm.
with burnout, some of them can't pay their bills, some of them got bad credit, some of them got, and you
Right.
connect with people telling you a real true life story of what you deal with and how you got through it. And I want you to motivate them and share your story of how you got through some of those things. So I totally agree with you. Is I believe me just being able to share my story is what makes it unique to let people know that yes, you could go through all these things, but yes, you could actually get through some of these things too as well.
Yeah, and I mean your beginnings were tough. And I can't say because, I've only known you for this short amount of time, but obviously there has been some joy that has come alongside that adversity, and you've experienced love and warmth and other great things. And, your first time seeing snow was not a very positive thing, but you have this life now where you get to create things and not just reflect on what has happened, and that it is in no way minimizing what you've experienced. But I I have a love for people, but the entire purpose behind this platform is to share hope and to share stories. And
Mhm.
sometimes it's here's what you should do or could do in your business if you are a small business owner and you have no idea what you should be doing or could be doing. And sometimes here's the real about what you're faced with on a daily basis, or your
Mhm.
past, and how your past sometimes uninvitingly will show up in your present, and then
True.
you got to deal with it.
True.
And that's what I'm hearing. So this bottle, and I don't want to layer this with anything that's generic or jargon, or because we've dropped it all out on the table here today, Michael.
So let me share this with you. I believe that personal development and professional development coincide and you cannot separate them
Absolutely.
wholeheartedly. And when I tell people my story, it because they tie into one another. So as my professional life was going great, even in the military, I still was dealing with some of those things on the inside that I never truly addressed. When I transitioned out of the military to go work on the railroad, as much as I wanted to suppress what took place, it showed up when I showed up at that suicide person. It showed up right then and there because I've never addressed it and faced it. It showed
Mhm.
up when I lost my job. That's what actually took place because they let me go. And I had the chance to introspectively look at my life over the past 2 years as I was doing positive things, but I had the chance to like really like dig deep and
Mhm.
identify some of the things that I was dealing with. And my life started getting better when I went on to Washington, D.C. But guess what? I never truly addressed some of the things that I was really facing. So I got into another relationship and I was dealing with my current wife now, which I'll share the beauty of what took place. So me and my wife got together, we started dating. And then we got married. And after 6 months, we go through a divorce. And as we're going through this divorce, my life is going great. I'm doing great in Washington, D.C. I'm working on Capitol Hill, working with Colin Powell, doing all these great things. And I'm going over to the White House, you name it, doing all these cool things. But at our home, things were not great. And she
Mhm.
was telling me that I'm having nightmares, I'm fighting in my sleep, I'm having you're bringing up your military stories and all these things. So then it started like ringing like, yo, something is off, something is
Mhm.
not right. And
Mhm.
shortly after that, we started getting into arguments and fussing. And in addition to that, we're in a blended family. Um, I'm gonna take you back. I'm gonna tell you back to some things that I'm gonna be transparent with your audience about. So when I was on the railroad and I was getting ready to leave the railroad, I was with my first wife at the time. And when I was with my first wife, me being on call became a big issue for us. And it led to a whole bunch of other things in our relationship. And that led us to going through a divorce. That first night that I got that divorce letter, I went out to drink. I got a DUI. I went to jail. I spent a year on probation.
Mhm.
And I had to deal with that for a whole year. Fast forward, me and the same young lady at the time was going through a custody battle. So I spent 3 years in court going through a custody battle of flying back and forth from Washington, D.C. to Miami, trying to spend time and be with my son and just deal with this entire thing. So 3 years of hotels, rental cars, and airplane flights. Southwest has plenty of miles for me.
I can only imagine.
With all that being said, I'll fast forward now to where we're at now. So when I had the opportunity to leave DC, I was in a very bad place because me and my wife at the time was in a very bad place. So I asked my supervisor to say, "Hey, can you send me back to Florida?" So she sent me to Tampa, Florida. And this is when I was struggling because professionally I was doing great, but my identity was gone. My purpose was
Mm,
gone.
mm,
And when I thought about it, my identity was tied to some of the things as a kid. My identity was tied to the football player. My identity was tied to the Marine. My identity was tied to being a husband. My identity was tied to being a dad. And I lost all of those things. And I was struggling trying to navigate and try to find that. And I got to Tampa, Florida. I started going to the VA hospital to get help. Got put on to being on 13 different medication. And when you talk about not feeling like yourself and being yourself, this is when I felt totally, totally out of it. And I lost my value, I lost my worth. And I was there in Tampa, Florida, didn't have any of those things. And I took myself to that bridge there in Tampa, Florida, tied 50 pounds of weight to my leg. I got my weapon, and I was going to take my life that night.
mm,
And this was when I said, I'm going to change my life. This was my breaking moment. And once I identified that, God started just speaking to me in a way that just rocked my world. What came back to my mind, and when the most sobering moment for me was I had wrote that letter in boot camp to my mom, and I wrote a letter again on that night, and that letter kicked in. Like, how dare you?
mm,
How dare you? You've
mm,
came too far. You've been through so many things. You could do so many things. And you've gone through boot camp, you've gone through the childhood stuff, you've gone through Iraq, you've gone through all of these things. This is nothing that you can't get through. And one of the most selfish moments for me was this. So let me be honest about something else that I share with your audience that why I avoided getting help for close to 10 years. When I told you that I was going around and was passing out the supplies to the guys and the car bomb hits us,
mhm,
I had a whole bunch of grief and a whole bunch of guilt that was tied to that. In my mind, over 10 years, I played the story over and over in my head. I should have seen that. I could have seen that.
mm,
Why didn't you see that person in that car bomb? You drove right past them.
mm,
And I've always been telling myself it's my fault that they passed away. It's my fault that they died. It's my fault that they got hit. And those were the things that I was dreaming about. Those were the things that I couldn't get out of my head.
mhm,
And the saying of whenever you're inside of it's hard to see the label whenever you're inside of the jar. And that was
mm,
me. I was inside of that jar and I couldn't see it. And it was hard to identify some of those things. And for me to shatter some of those things, I truly, truly had to go and get the help. And what I say was selfish of me was, how dare I take my life and those guys lost their lives?
mm,
How dare I do something like that? And that's what has set me on the blaze and set me on the path to change my life and change people's lives. Immediately after that moment, I went to I went back to my wife and I started speaking to her about some of the things that I was dealing with and asked her to give me some of the help of what I was going through when I was like fighting at night and sweating at night.
mhm,
And then we got with Dr. Judith, and Dr. Judith started helping me identify some of these things from a holistic standpoint, addressing some of the things from my childhood. And once I started seeing the growth in myself and the transformation of myself, I'm like, oh snap, this stuff really works. So
Right.
she started helping me get through that path. But then I really wanted to dive in this mental health, this PTSD thing. So I went to Rush University in Chicago and I started working with the doctors there to understand what is it truly that PTSD is? What is it that traumatic brain injury is? And identifying some of the things that I was dealing with and going through. I think for you to shatter some of these things that you're dealing with, you have to like face them head on, identify what it is and face it head on. And that's exactly what I did. And then following that, I went to Emory in Atlanta, and they have this thing called the prolonged exposure.
Mm,
And prolonged exposure takes you through the stories that you tell yourself, the stories that you play in your mind over and over, and identify the truth and what's lies that's tied to that.
mm,
And when you go through that process, you know, some of those things that occurred in Iraq, I could have never done anything about it, but I used to tell myself that. And I was the customer that was buying what I was selling myself over and over and over
yeah.
again.
Yeah.
So going through that process and working with them truly diminished all of those things that was going on for myself. And then from there, man, I got plugged in and changed my outcome of the circle of people that I was with. So I joined this group called the Freedom Group. And the Freedom Group is kind of like freeing you of all of the things that you've been tied to that's been holding you back. And I went through that entire process twice. The first time I went through it and I didn't fully participate, honestly. I went through it and I was kind of like a fly on the wall, just kind of like listening to the information and just
Hmm.
going through the process. And then I said to myself, if you want to become successful, if you want to actually get past some of these things that you're dealing with and facing, you got to play all out. And I showed up and I started participating. Went to the Freedom Conference, one of the most amazing conferences I've ever been to.
Mm,
And I went through that, and it was one of the most life-changing experiences that I've ever had in regards to just freeing myself. And this was a group of like 20 guys that I was part of, a men's group, and it changed my life. And ever since then, I said, if this has changed my life, I want to make an impact and change people's lives too. And that's what led me to, I went to Houston, Texas. I got my
mhm.
friend Stephen Belber, and I'm there writing with him. And he says, "Hey man, you got so much of a story here that you could unpack and tell." And I wrote my life story in like two chapters. It was like,
Of
no, there's more,
course you did.
there's more to your story here. But I'll be honest with you, I was not ready to be vulnerable and transparent to talk about some of these things that I share with you. So I sat on that story for like my life story for like 6 years.
Mm,
And I was in the gym one day working out, and I'm just praying to God, like, what is it that you want me to do? What is it that you want me to do? And like the dumbbells fell, and he was like, I want you to share your story. I want you to change people's lives. And I was running my construction company, and I went to the franchise owner and I told him I'm going to sell this franchise. And that's another part of the business that I could go down the whole rabbit hole of selling a franchise. So I sold the franchise, and after I sold the franchise, I wrote my book in 90 days, got on a TEDx stage, and ever since then, people have been coming up to me like, "Yo, thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for telling me that, man, you changed my life. You did this, you did this." And I was like, "Oh, this is what God wants me to do." The impact of
mm,
me just being vulnerable and transparent and sharing my story. Being a kid that was bottled up, isolated, never wanted to talk to nobody, never wanted to share my story, and realizing how much of an impact it was. And from there, my life, my career has taken off ever since then. Now I'm a keynote speaker. Now people ask me to coach them. Now people ask me to consult them and all these different things. But I never knew those things were in place for me. But those were the stepping stones of like building me and taking it to me where I'm at now. And just add to that, once me and my wife went through over 3 years of counseling, we got remarried 3 years ago, and our family is
oh,
back together. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So it's just been a beautiful ride.
Michael, you are one of the most powerful human beings I've ever met. And you've served in high stakes environments and with high stakes people like Colin Powell and such, and other esteemed leaders. And I know just from hearing you and speaking with you for this little bit of time, smidgen of time, right? That there's a part of people, a part of humanity that glorifies titles and glorifies the outward things and, you know, aspirational things, but you have this lived truth, you have this assurance and not you have a love for people. I can just tell by your expression of your story. And the fact that you can share it with us and continue to share it in however many ways, wherever you go, and to have healed from, there's so many opportunities where you could have given in, or you could have said no, or you could have said, I'm going to go this way to addiction, or you could have succumbed to the desires to end the pain of things. And we're so glad you're still here. And you could have not fought for your family and your marriage. You could have not fought for yourself. You could have not fought for your friends. And yet you are still here as, and I don't want to offend you when I say this, but I'm going to say as a soldier. I know you're a
Mhm.
Marine, so I'm not referencing the army,
I
okay?
got you.
But as a soldier, as someone who is here to fight for humanity and as change makers, as an audience, I count it an honor that you have shared so much. And I'm going to an event shortly and I'm going to share. I cannot wait for us to share this episode, and they're gonna have to wait for it to air. But um you answered so many questions that I would have asked, because I was thinking, well, at what moment did he think that he needed to do this? And at what moment did this change? And you shared those transitions and those mindset shifts and the help. I think that one huge takeaway for those who may be suffering in silence as leaders or as husbands is that even though your moment of clarity came through your wife saying to you, hey, you're doing some stuff in your sleep you might not be aware of.
Right, right, right.
You didn't push her away with her saying that. You were like, oh, wait,
Mm,
maybe there's some truth to this.
right.
And you were curious enough about it to seek out what I'm hearing is some of the best places to seek
Yeah,
help and assistance from.
exactly.
And so I am going to assume, but I'll let you tell us this. When you decided to transition this adversarial life into this opportunity, into this framework to help other people, what would you say to someone else about getting help or surrounding them? Maybe they don't think they have enough in them, right? Maybe they feel too beat up, but they have to save face because they're in a leadership position.
Hmm.
And no one can know this about me, because then my power dynamic is going to shift, or I have this responsibility. What do you say to that person who may need some assistance in having some people wrap their arms around them? Where do they go? What do they do?
So this is the first step is this. If you're willing to be vulnerable and transparent and let down your guard just a little, you'll see on the other side of that there's transformation. And for me, I had to truly put myself first. If I want to help other people, lead my company, I had at the same time as I was going through all those things, I still had a business, I still had a company, I still had people looking up to me. And what I actually did was something that is unconventional. I kind of call things around this like unleadership, untraditional things.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually share now with my team. So the people that actually work for me know that everything from my childhood all the way up to my marriage, my divorce, the arrest, all of those things, and they still work for me.
Right,
And they respect me more in regards to me vulnerable and transparent because I connected with them on a human level.
right.
And I know that they're going through some of the same things at home with their kids, with their mom, with their dad, with their husband, all of those things.
Mm.
So from a standpoint of a leader, I empathize with them as in regards to like I understand that you're going through things and I know that you have challenges too as well. Just like I'm human, and I have things that I have to deal with too as well. So as a leader, if you're in an organization, you're in a company, it's okay if you still address things from a leadership standpoint as like, I'm dealing with something, I'm facing some things. And then you could also share with them too, if they have something going on too as well, that this is a safe space where you guys have the opportunity to get the help that you need to from your organization. For myself though, as I was going through this, you know, as a leader, I said, if I'm going to serve these people and help these people, Michael got to get right too. I got to get right first.
Mhm.
And going through this process, which created the framework for me of breaking the bottle, decision, direction, and destination. And I've always identified my destination, and I don't even tie that to like success, as in like money or anything like that. The destination for me was launching my business and getting my business back on feet. The other thing was getting my family back together. That was the destination of putting my I had broken up my family, so I had to work on getting my family back together. And the decision piece is I was making bad decisions. So how can I start making better decisions? And then how can I move myself into that direction? So the framework, I'll break down the framework here for you. So decision is breaking the patterns. So looking at all of the patterns, I realized my life patterns, some of them kept repeating themselves over and over, ebbs and flows. So I had to really address those things. So like identifying what are some of the things, the beliefs that's tied to that, clarifying some of the things, verifying some of the things that's going to get me into alignment and get me to clarity. The
Mm,
next thing I would say towards that is the other part of the framework is direction. So choose that path. You got to be intentional in choosing the path of where you want to go for yourself, for your business, for your family, for your company, however you want to look at that. But from there, start building, start putting plans in place, start navigating through that. And at the same time, you got to be very mindful in regards to things that are going to take you off course because it's easily when distractions take you off course. And for me, I found there was lots of things that caused me to start drifting, take me off course of where I was wanted to be at, what I wanted to do. And the destination is piece is owning that future. And when you start doing that, it comes with the purpose. You got to start engaging. For me, I have to engage with the the Rush, the Emory. I had to engage with the Freedom Group. I had to put myself around men that's going to support me, accountability partners, coaches, and mentors, people that's going to uplift me and put me into a place. And also the sustainability standpoint, because when I got to Iraq, the first sign that I saw once we got into that fog that it said complacency kills.
mm.
And if you never,
Ooh,
if
that's
you
deep.
never, it's
Ooh.
if you've never given that thought, if you sit with that, complacency kills. And if you ever is going to sit at a place of comfortability, sustainability, you're never going to evolve. You're never going to elevate. You're never going to change. You're never going to keep getting better. So if you think of sustainability is how can I create the life that's always going to keep on, if I'm here at a great level, how can I consistently stay great or keep on evolving to be great with my life, with my family, keep challenging myself, keep pushing myself to keep better at getting better and better. And ultimately, overall, for me, it came down to being disciplined. I think discipline is the highest form of self-love. When you love yourself so much, you'll be super, super disciplined to do whatever it takes to do all these things. Also, for me, I became I've never played the victim, so I've always been solutions thinking, solutions focused, and
Mhm.
always being difference led and always looking at like what's going to make a difference for me. How is this going to move the needle for me? How is this going to move my business? And I think for your leaders or people that's listening, if you could just identify some of those things that I just break down for you, it'll help you get you to your destination.
Absolutely incredible. So many nuggets here. Complacency kills. That is, I'm all about growth, right?
Hmm.
Growth by design, growth by momentum. And while that's a war story, it applies to every bit of living and leading. And that is going to stick with me. Thank you so much for all of this. And you have a joy, like there's a conundrum here. It's that you just told these stories and you are sitting here bright-eyed, smiling genuinely. I'm like, I'm ready to go. Let's do this. You're my kind of people, okay? My family is originally from the islands. I always say there is something about us that is not like other people. And for whatever the creator meant by instilling in us whatever he's instilled, I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful that you share that with the rest of the world. Please share with us, Michael, how the audience can connect with you, can learn more about the Adversity Academy, all the things.
Absolutely. So my website is www.michaelwallison.com. On all social media, it's I am Michael W. Allison. The Adversity Academy is the Adversity Academy itself. And if you want to find my books, my first book is called Overcoming Adversity, Getting Your Life Back on Track. And my new book called Breaking the Bottle will be released coming up here in July. And stay tuned for that. You can start the pre-orders now on michaelallison.com as well too. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm so excited for you. We cannot wait. Hey, Changemaker, real quick before you go, if today's episode helped you in some way, the best way to thank me is to head over to Apple Podcasts, subscribe to the channel, and leave a review. I'd also love to connect with you over on social. You can find me at Friends Call Me Fee. Until next time, keep changing the game.